and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kate, I make videos about books and bookish things, and I bought some books recently, which, understatement of the century for people who make book videos, but essentially I graduated recently, definitely haven't been mentioning it every opportunity I get, and as a graduation present my parents gave me a £100 book voucher, which was incredibly lovely of them, and as they said themselves in the card, they thought I would like it better than flowers, and they were right. I am very happy to be buying books as opposed to having a bouquet. So I got to treat myself at the start of this summer, and so I am here to show you the books that I got with that £100 book voucher and a couple that I got on the side because I couldn't spend the voucher on them but wanted to get them anyway. So I may as well just start. I've got somewhere between 14 and 16 books to show you, I think. I know 15's the medium, but it's either 14 or 16. And so I'm just going to jump right in and show you the stuff that I bought. So this first little handful of books came from Foyles and Blackwell's, did an online order and had them shipped to me, so I got to scurry around in packages like a feral little library raccoon. So that's what I'll start with because they were the first ones I got. First book I'm going to show you is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is one that I had seen recommended online in a few different places. I think Lexi Newly Nova put it in one of her reading wrap-ups, which I get sporadically on my TikTok For You page and thoroughly enjoy typically, and she rated it highly, and also one of my lovely real-life friends, Emma, read it and said it was one of the most life-affirming, beautiful sci-fi stories about sort of found family and really centering platonic love, which is something that both I and her value extremely highly. So I've been on a winning streak with sci-fi books lately, and this is adult sci-fi, and I found myself gravitating more towards books for grown-ups as opposed to books for teenagers, which is probably appropriate as I'm 22, but yeah, I have good feelings about this. I'm very excited to read it and to share my thoughts with Emma when I finally get to it. Next is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This is another one that I'm pretty sure I just found somewhere on TikTok, but looked it up and it sounded absolutely fantastic. This is sort of Regency, magical realism, potentially sort of proper fantasy, about a girl cursed to not feel shame or embarrassment about her having to enter high fae society, which to me sounds like a big old allegory for autism, which I think will be good fun. Apparently it's very romance focused as well, so I'm excited for general sort of fae, upper class, historical fiction-y hijinks, especially if it's got some kind of like vague neurodivergent undertones. Again, this is what I've gotten from the blurb. I don't know explicitly that this is a metaphor for autism, but given the description on the blurb was just like, oh, a condition that makes her prone to accidental scandal, no sense of fear or embarrassment. Sounds like someone who's not too good at reading social cues, and I think this will be very good fun. So yeah, looking forward to reading it, and what a lovely cover. I really like it. The next book is Verona in Autumn by Tom Lloyd, with this incredibly shiny cover, which I'm trying not to have reflect at you too much. This is one that I saw recommended by Lena Norms, who is someone whose videos I've watched for a very, very long time on YouTube, and I believe she got this one as a proof copy. But she posted about it and it sounded super, super interesting. Basically, the premise is, what if Romeo and Juliet got to each other in time? What if they didn't die? And what if they ran off to live their life together? So this book follows them as adults with teenage children of their own, returning to Verona for the first time since everything went down with them fleeing. And so I'm a big fan of Shakespeare adaptation, as I think I've displayed many, many times over the years that I've been making videos. And so something taking on Romeo and Juliet with a lack of cynicism, I think, is going to be really nice, because Romeo and Juliet is one of those stories that obviously gets redone, retold, pastiched in so many different ways, and normally with a level of kind of, you know, these were teenagers who had a 3-day relationship and people died over it, which is a view that I very much stand by and I completely agree with, but something that actually goes, no, what if their relationship lasted and we properly looked at the society that forced them to run away from each other? I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to be really good, and I've got another Romeo and Juliet adaptation in the pile here, so you'll see that in a moment too. But yeah, looking forward to this, and I would trust Lena Norm's book recommendations to the end of time, so yeah. In the list of more classical adaptation, I've got A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Again, just seen it around on TikTok. Various people have recommended it, and I think I saw it as well in an Instagram post of someone going, here's vampire stuff, but not really as you know it. The premise of this one is that it follows, what's her name? It follows Constanta, one of the brides of Dracula, as she attempts to flee Dracula's castle with the other brides and processes the incredibly traumatic and abusive relationship that they had with Dracula. So I am all for sort of feminist, female-led retellings of incredibly classical books, and I'm extremely excited to read more vampire stuff because I really, really like the original Dracula by Bram Stoker, and so something that sort of riffs on it will be really, really interesting. The premise sounded fantastic. I've seen lots of stuff though about trigger warnings, so I'll just bring that up myself in case you are thinking of reading it, but yeah. Also, like, damn, what a cover. What a fantastic looking book. So yeah, looking forward to this one. And my friend Emma very much said, when you come back up north, can you bring it with you so that I can borrow it? So got your back, Emma. You can steal this once I've read it. Next is Cahokia Jazz by Frances Spufford. I've mentioned this already in my mid-year freakout tag video. I went to Hexham Book Festival in, I think, early May this year, in which I saw Frances Spufford talk about this book, and it sounds really, really good. It's incredibly chunky, so I'm looking forward to a decent sort of binge reading session and or something I can nicely pace myself out over. But this is a 1920s noir style thriller. We're talking dead body on the roof of a jazz club. We're talking a riff on a now sort of extinct city on the Mississippi River, instead inhabited by a roughly equal proportion of Native Americans to the black and white populations. So we're looking at the racial inequalities in 1920s America. We're talking about jazz and blues and murder mystery and fucked up detectives trying to solve those mysteries. So I'm really looking forward to this. I've always had a soft spot for crime novels and murder mysteries and thrillers, and so I'm really excited to read one meant for grown-ups as opposed to like Karen M. McManus, who wrote One of Us is Lying, which kind of slapped and everything else after sucked. So yeah, really looking forward to this, and I think it should be a nice fun one that won't tax my brain too heavily but will give me some nice synapse flaring excitement too. And now we come to the two YA novels that I picked up, because as much as I am slowly weaning myself off of reading things for teenagers, there were two books that I knew I absolutely had to get if I had a decent amount of money to spend on books. And so those are Iron Widow by Jiranjie Zhao, because all my friends have been recommending it to me, especially Matt. I know he's extremely fond of this one. This is a riff on sci-fi with giant animatronic monsters, and I know it's got polyamory in it. I don't know a huge amount about it besides that, except that it has been widely touted as an incredible book, and as you know, I'm a big fan of Chloe Gong, and so, you know, Shanghai, Chinese-inspired folkloric stuff mixed in with blends of sci-fi and fantasy sounds like it'll be right up my alley. I'm very excited to get to this. I think it'll probably be something that sort of sticks in my mind for a very long time, one of those proper brain chemistry altering books. So yeah, very excited to get to it. And I know there's a sequel that came out very recently, so if I like it, I may go pick that up too. And the other one is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Weir. Oh, you are a shiny cover. There we go. You can look at the lovely Bone Nun in all her glory. My friend Alfie is obsessed with this series, as is my friend Carrie, but it's Alfie who's in my ear most often telling me to read this. Lesbian necromancers in space is the tagline, and I have read so many individual quotations from it, either in my DMs sent by Alfie or just posted in those sort of web weaving posts that you get across Tumblr and Instagram, and so I think it has a very strong likelihood of being something that again just grabs hold of my brain in two hands and starts gnawing on it. So extremely excited to see what all the hype is about, to finally understand an aspect of two of my very good friends, and yeah, hoping that I like it because I know that there are 3 more books to come as well. So yeah, looking forward to having my brain ruined by this. At least I very much hope it does, because if it doesn't, I'm going to feel very disappointed that I don't get that experience alongside Alfie, who is, on the whole, the person I share the most brain cells with. So yeah, hoping it'll be good, and if not, I think there may be something wrong with me. Next, I have 2 adult fiction books that I picked up secondhand through World of Books simply because they were on there incredibly cheap and I was looking at picking them anyway, and those are Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and Act Your Age, Eve Brown, because I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown a couple of years ago now and really, really enjoyed it as my first sort of attempt at reading romance books for grown-ups. It's not a spice novel, it's not a smut novel. Are there sex scenes? Yes, however, it does actually contain plot as well and is well written. I know my biases are showing, however, TikTok, you've done bad things to the book industry, and so I was incredibly excited to pick up the other two following Chloe's two younger sisters as they find their own love interests. Take hint, Dani Brown, as far as I know, has fake dating trope and very much I don't have time for romance kind of things, and I believe Dani is generally speaking the more radical, wild, out there of the sisters, and then Act Your Age Eve Brown is enemies to lovers done a bit more sincerely than Chloe Brown's was, because that was much more like, we both think we hate each other but we actually like each other. So yeah, really looking forward to reading these. Again, just some turn my brain off, good fun. I don't expect a huge amount from romance books, to be honest. So long as I think the couple should get together, they're a win in my book. In my book. Terrible, I'm so sorry. But I'm looking forward to reading these, and I'm glad I got them so cheap and in such good condition, because they're basically just a little bit crinkly on the spines, so yeah. Next, I have 3 books that I picked up in my local Waterstones, because I went in there very much not intending to spend any of my book voucher, and then saw things and went, I think I need these, actually. And so the very first one of those is Fair Rosaline by Natasha Solomons. I actually saw Natasha give a talk at Durham Book Festival last year about this book. They held a brilliant talk talking about adapting Shakespeare, and I basically left it wanting to get all of the books. Haven't managed to track down Lady Macbethiad yet, but that is the other book that was discussed in the talk that sounded fantastic, and this one is Fair Rosaline. As I said when talking about Verona in Autumn, a lot of Romeo and Juliet adaptations tend to be fairly cynical, and you know what? This is definitely going to be one of those, and I'm very much looking forward to it. This is looking at Rosaline, the woman that Romeo was in love with before Juliet, but instead looking at Romeo's behaviour as part of a pattern of pursuing younger, more vulnerable girls. And so I'm very much excited to look at one of the underexplored characters of Shakespeare's canon. I'm such a fan of generally taking those side characters, throwaway mentions, and going, what if they got an entire life and story beyond the plot that we actually saw staged in Shakespeare's version? And I'm all about, again, feminist retellings dunking on the men, so I think it'll be very funny if I read this back to back with Verona in Autumn to see my opinions on Romeo as a character and how they shift about between these two versions. But yes, hearing Natasha Solomons talk about it, it is clear what a passion she has for Shakespeare, and so I'm incredibly excited to read something born of that kind of passion. And lovely cover, again. The covers are fantastic in this bunch, I have to say. Obviously we don't buy books based on their covers unless they're exceptionally pretty, but yeah, these have all done so well, so yeah, looking forward to getting to this one. And then, as I said, I've got another Shakespeare adaptation, except this one is Cleopatra and Julius by Joanna Courtney. So technically I'm lying when I say it's a Shakespeare adaptation, because obviously Shakespeare never tackled Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. However, my favourite Shakespeare play, probably overall, is Antony and Cleopatra, and of course in Julius Caesar, a large amount of that is dealing with the ruler that he becomes. So a book looking at the love story between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar and the way these like absolute powerhouses of rulers could never be together. I had a quick flick through. This is clearly like action happening on the page. We are not taking a bird's eye view. We are not exploring around the love story of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. We are with them having couple spats, and I am so excited for this. If this lets me down, I will be devastated, because, as I say, Antony and Cleopatra, big fan of, but ultimately, let's be honest, the romance between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, so much more impressive. Mark Antony, the whole point of him was he was an ineffectual leader. Julius Caesar knew where it was at so much that they assassinated him because of it, so yeah, I think you can tell my very palpable excitement about this book. I will probably get to this quite quickly as a result, and yeah, it's been a good summer for me as an Antony and Cleopatra fan, having read Immortal Longings very recently, which I am really hoping I'm going to do a video on soon if I can find my notes on it and bolster it into a better thing. And because Vilest Things has literally just come out, and I am going to be buying it in hardcover when I get back up north, and so I don't have to lug it in my suitcase. So yeah, between this and Chloe Gong, I am eating well on my Antony and Cleopatra, that sort of era of history content. And now the last thing I picked up in Waterstones, and the first of 3 poetry books that I got, is Self-Portrait as Othello by Jason Allen Paysant. This won the T.S. Eliot Prize last year, and I trust the verdict of the T.S. Eliot Prize. I did my dissertation, or a section of it, on Cunto by Joelle Taylor, so I know that they know how to pick good poetry collections. This is exploring the author's identity as a black man through the lens of Othello, ultimately the most canonical black male character, so I'm really excited to see this sort of exploration of selfhood and identity through that very canonical but ultimately fictional lens. So yeah, really excited for this, and obviously the writing is going to be superb because it's a T.S. Eliot Prize winner, so yeah, really looking forward to this. And now I have the paperback version of 100 Queer Poems, which is edited by Andrew McMillan and Mary Jean Chan, who I got to see talk at Durham Book Festival last year and whose poetry I am a massive fan of. I did actually get lent this in hardcover by my friend Matt, but then it sat on my shelf for so long that he took it back without me having read it, which very much fair, however, did mean I didn't get to peruse the poetry in this, so I'm very excited to read this. So many poems I know are in here by authors that I already deeply admire and enjoy the poetry of, so I'm very much looking forward to examining more queer poetry, having just done a dissertation in queer poetry. I am a parody of myself. This is what I enjoy, and I'm very, very glad I have this. It'll be great for me to just dip in and out of and or binge in a single reading session, which is how I read a lot of my poetry, but yeah. Very excited for her. And finally, the last new book that I got is one that was recommended to me, essentially, on Blackwell's. When I was looking for 100 queer poems, it did a little pop-up going, if you're interested in this, you may like, and it suggested to me Sailing Without Ahab by Steve Menz. This is a poetry collection modelled off the formatting of Moby Dick by Herman Melville, which, if you've seen the tier ranking video I put out semi-recently, you'll know that I read Moby Dick for my degree, and unfortunately I really enjoyed it, and it low-key became a hyperfixation for a little bit. This is a poetry collection looking at eco-poetry, climate change, travel, but in doing so it has a single poem for each of the, I think, 138 chapters of Moby Dick. So this is so incredibly up my alley, both in terms of subject and theming and formatting, and like, what an amazing cover as well. I'm extremely excited to read some poetry by someone I've never heard of before as well. I did just buy this with absolutely no knowledge of it, besides the fact that it is called Sailing Without Ahab and it is modelled on Moby Dick, so I think this should be really good fun. I want to make more videos talking about poetry, I think, because poetry is very much one of my biggest loves outside of books, as in novels, and obviously, you know, I did my dissertation in poetry. This is something that I feel very passionately about and could talk about for, you know, 10,000 words or so. So I don't know, I think poetry reviews are a more difficult thing to do on the whole, so I will have to see how I feel about it. But yeah, I do read a very vast amount of poetry. Who knows? Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, or if you have a more original format for it other than me just being like, I read this, it's good, here's the good poems in it, because no one would watch that. But yeah, excited for this, excited to maybe talk about poetry. And there we have it. That is the massive stack of books that I got, with the voucher given to me by my parents as a way to say, well done for reading so many books across your degree. Would you like some more? It was extremely fun to put this list together, to pick things up, to take the recommendations of my friends, especially the ones where they've been going, you need to read this, for years in some cases, with Gideon and with Iron Widow, so extremely excited to get to these books, and of course, if they're good, I will film reviews of them. Here's the thing, I'm about to move back up north. I will not have my ring light. My ring light is what facilitates a lot of my video filming because it bathes me in nice even light, which makes me feel a bit more confident about being on camera and allows me to raise my phone up to a nice height. I will not have this when I move back up, and so it may be a while before I film again. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Please do give it a like if you did indeed like it, and comment down below if there are any of these books I should be checking out sooner, any opinions you have on the whole, and maybe even some recommendations. I've, as you can see, been very into my Shakespeare adaptations lately, so let me know if there are any of those that have somehow slipped under my radar, especially if they are based on either Antony and Cleopatra or As You Like It. Those are my favourites. If you are new here, feel free to subscribe so you can see when I make new bookish videos. Maybe a bit chaotic, maybe a bit sporadic in terms of when I am posting them, but I like doing this, so I will hopefully be back on your screens very, very soon. And yeah, I will see you next time after I've done a significant amount of reading. So yeah, bye. Why am I so sweaty? I hate it here. This is what I get for wearing a black boiler suit. I'm putting the boiling in boiling suit right now. For real. I should be more awake when I film these videos. I got up like half an hour ago.